Hello everyone, I'm Heather at Amalgamingle, and if you enjoy games that have a base building, creature catching and survival element, then you have no doubt been playing Palworld, or at least have been considering checking out the title. Normally, I would create a more in-depth things I wish I knew tip video for games I adore, such as this. However, Palworld is a little bit more complicated. There is so much going on in this game, and I wanted to cover as much as I can. So, in no particular order, here are 20 essential tips for Palworld newcomers. Number 20. Create a custom world. Believe it or not, you do not have to go with the default settings that come with each difficulty level. Instead, you can create a custom world when you start a new game. Creating a custom world means you can toggle numerous settings to make certain elements of the game less or more punishing, depending on your gaming preferences. For example, you can tweak XP gains, damage output, egg incubation periods, depletion rates and much more. Be careful though, because increasing XP gains might sound tempting, but it can break the game and start feeling very rewardless. You get XP for pretty much everything anyway, so unless you are in a rush to immediately see all that the game has to offer, it's best to take your time and accept the slower rollout of rewards. Palworld isn't a game you need to rush through. Number 19. Your base location matters. Do not be hasty in placing your PAL box down just anywhere. You ideally want to find a good sized open space with several resource pools contained within the PAL box radius. Most notably trees, rocks and mineral deposits such as ore or paldium. Having these resource pools inside your base will enable early game automation of the collection of resources you will need in great abundance throughout the game. Base location becomes much less important later on in the game since you can have more than one base in operation. Also be sure not to create your base in an area where higher level pals will frequently stomp through and cause havoc before you've even had a chance to put up any defences. Number 18. Collect Lifmunk Effigies. Catching the many pals that populate the world, even with better sphere options, can be quite a pain, so it's a good idea to actively seek out Lifmunk Effigies. These effigies, that emit a green glow and are easy to spot, especially at night, can be offered to statues of power to permanently increase the player's capture power. The first upgrade only costs 3 effigies, and each offering after increases in increments of 4. The player's capture power can be increased 12 times over, so in order to max out your capture rate you will need to collect over 250 effigies. Oh, but don't worry, Lifmunk effigies are everywhere. Statues of power can also be used to enhance PAL stats by using different sized PAL souls to upgrade individual stats. Number 17. Unveil the map. Players are granted XP for discovering places and activating Great Eagle statues that act as fast travel points, amongst other things like crafting, catching pals, defeating enemies, and even picking things up off the floor. Levelling up is normally how you gain technology points to spend unlocking things in the technology tree, but you also get a technology point for activating the Great Eagle statues, which is a big plus. Furthermore, exploring is a good way to find settlements, discover new pals, chests, spheres, and other resources that are just scattered around on the ground, ready for the taking. You know what they say, finders keepers. Number 16. Custom map markers. Sometimes, while out exploring the world, you can come across things that are not marked on the map, but you would like to return to them later, such as caves, a good location for an additional base, chests that can't be opened yet, or a cluster of mineral deposits you want to mine later. The best way to keep track of these points of interest is to place a custom marker on the world map, using an icon that signifies what it is. This is a very similar system to the map markers you can place in Zelda Breath of the Wild, although thankfully Palworld is much more generous in the amount of icons you can place at any time. Number 15. Pay attention to PAL attributes. Every PAL in the game comes with their own work suitabilities, active skills, passive skills, basic stats and a partner skill. You really need to pay attention to these. The work suitabilities show what tasks each PAL will be most proficient in performing at your base. Active skills are combat abilities, basic stats are, well, basic stats, they're self-explanatory. Partner skills are special talents such as being rideable. Passive skills are individual perks that can do anything from increase stats of the player and pals to increasing carry capacity and work speeds. Number 14. Ranch farming. Players can be forgiven for assuming that pals will automatically produce just wool when placed in the ranch, due to Lamball being the first accessible pal with a farming suitability, and these of course produce wool. However, the ranch is much more important than you might think. Different pals that have the farming work suitability can produce different items when placed in the ranch, and some pals have passive skills that can have an effect on other pals assigned to the ranch, if they are assigned there themselves, despite not having farming as a work suitability themselves. Doomuns produce high quality pal oil, Kelpsy produces pal fluids, Flambell produces flame organs, Vixie produces pal spheres, and Mouse even produce money. Honestly, the ranch has saved me from having to actively search for specific pals to gain item drops. Number 13. Shiny pals exist. Short entry this one, but it is worth mentioning. Did you know that Palworld has its own version of shiny Pokemon called Lucky Pals? It is wise to keep an eye out for these, because they come with the Lucky passive skill that grants an additional 15% attack and work speed alongside other passive skills. They are rare, but if you spot a pal that has a shiny aura around it, then you should go out of your way to catch it. So yes, shiny pals, who knew? Number 12. Don't start what you can't finish. Palworld is a multiplayer game, and therefore most boss battles are easier when taken on as part of a team. But if you are an antisocial gamer who prefers single player games, like myself, you should definitely avoid big boss battles until you are completely confident in your arsenal and abilities. Boss battles aren't necessarily difficult themselves. The only reason they are hard is primarily because they come with a timer, and this timer is quite stingy. If you haven't defeated the boss before the timer runs out, you lose. Obviously, big bosses come with a hefty HP meter, and hitting them with a stick is going to take you far beyond the allocated time to defeat them. Better to wait until you have some weapons that can inflict bigger chunks of damage. Same applies with higher level areas, because angry pals are not the only enemies in the game. There's PFID officers, bounties, the Free Pal Alliance, messengers of love who are not as nice as they sound, and other human enemies that can kick your low-level ass. Number 11. Carry capacity and storage solutions. One of the recurring issues you will face in Palworld is always running out of inventory space and figuring out where to ditch things you accumulate, so that you can go back out and accumulate more, naturally. There are several ways to combat this. Make sure you unlock and craft lots of wooden storage boxes very early game. You only need wood to make these, and although they have a limited number of slots available, you can unlock bigger, better storage solutions as you progress. This includes chests with larger capacities, furniture with built-in storage, and even large shipping containers. Also be sure to invest points into carry capacity, which increases 50 each time, and Cativa is a useful pal to have in your party since they help to carry goods and increase your carry capacity. Number 10. Get yourself a noble steed. Lots of pals can be used as mounts in the game, allowing you to cover more ground when exploring, not having to dismount to initiate actions. The best early game mount, in my opinion, is Direhowl. Some might argue that Ike Theodore is better. However, crafting their saddle at the Palgay workbench is harder, and their lumbering work suitability is more valuable early game. Direhowl is fast, can hold its own in combat, and its saddle is craftable using easily accessible natural materials. There are other options such as Rushaw, but this pal is arguably not much faster than walking. Number 9. Things degrade or expire. Weapons, accessories, clothing, tools and structures inside your base all degrade at varying rates. You can adjust the rate of degradation in the custom world settings. Be sure to craft a repair bench to repair gear and tools, and craft repair kits to fix structures inside your base. This will make sure everything is in tip-top shape and you won't need to recraft things. Similarly, ingredients have an expiration timer. It's always better to cook raw ingredients to make the end result more potent, But even cooked meals have a timer signifying the length of time it will take for the food to expire. This expiration timer can be refreshed by simply moving the food to a different storage location. For example, if you notice that berries stored in the PAL feed box are running out of time, you can replace them in your inventory and notice that the timer resets. You can then put them back, safe in the knowledge that the ingredients will last a lot longer. Not sure if this was intended, but it's an excellent glitch. Number 8. Collect and incubate eggs. The egg incubator is unlockable at tier 7 in the technology tree, but requires an ancient technology point gained from defeating a boss. It is a base essential item. Any eggs you pick up while out in the world can be hatched to reveal a new pal. Yay! Depending on your settings, this can either be an instant birth or a lengthy time period with specific conditions that need to be met. For example, a fire pal egg will need to be kept warm. Whatever your world settings are, collecting and incubating eggs are a must. Sometimes, if you struggle to catch a specific pal and have to flee, or end up accidentally killing it, you can find the same pal inside an egg more often than not. Also, the more pals you have, the better. There is an unlockable condenser later in the game which allows you to combine the skills from several pals of the same species, and the end result is a much stronger pal. Furthermore, if you catch a certain amount of the same species of pal, you will get an XP boost. Number 7. Take to the skies. Some winged beasts enable flight, providing you unlock and craft their accompanying saddle, and you definitely want the ability to fly as soon as possible, because it's game changing. Nightwing is the easiest and most accessible early game flight option. It's not the fastest flyer, but having an aerial perspective of the land can really help with your search for Lifmunk effigies, fast travel statues, new and interesting pals, provide access to new islands and high areas, and simply help you to get a lay of the land and surrounding areas. No joke though, Nightwing is slow, and you might need to be quite patient, but rest assured that better, faster flight options do become available as you progress and catch more pals. Number 6. Not everything is worth it. Just because you've had to unlock something in the technology tree and craft it, doesn't mean it's going to be any good. Some pal gear required to use pal partner skills, and some weapons are just simply not worth the time, tech points and resources you have to invest. A good example of this is the katana, which does inflict over 500 damage points. But only if you manage to hit the actual target, since your islander lunges forward haphazardly when they use the katana. Useless, unless you're aiming at a stationary target, which you never are. The makeshift SMG burns through coarse ammo way too fast. The wooden club is pointless when your axe and pickaxe inflicts much more damage. The curve module is pointless. Some clothing is pointless, since better versions quickly become available. The makeshift handgun is much better than the handgun unlocked later in the game. There's so much stuff that will be useless to you depending on your playstyle, so use your tech points and resources wisely. Number 5. You can change your appearance. When Palworld first launched on Xbox Day 1 as a beta, you could not change your character's appearance after customization at the start. Thankfully, the game has come a long way since then, and the introduction of an antique dresser allows players to revisit character customization and change your character design. Admittedly, the customization options in Palworld are not great. I do hope they expand on this in the future, but it's nice to have the option there. Number 4. Ingots. You will quickly realise the importance of mining ore and smelting it into ingots for crafting better gear and base structures. This means that you will need a convenient resource pool to mine lots of ore, a furnace to smelt the ore, and a pal that has kindling as a work suitability. Early game, it's better to craft a metal axe to increase how much ore you get from manually mining single ore deposits. Later on, you can unlock an ore mining site to place inside your base and assign a pal with mining as a work suitability to ensure a steady supply of ore. You can do the same with lumbering sites to get wood and stone pits for stone. By doing this, you can end up with thousands of basic resources. Anyways, for ingots, it's best to catch a fox parks to assign to the furnace early game, since they are low level and therefore easier to catch, and lots can be found near the starting areas. Number 3. tundra and tropical outfits and undershirts. Some areas in Palworld have scorching or freezing climates, and if you want to explore these areas, you will need to equip clothing that can provide you with a tolerance to these extreme biomes. Heat and cold resistant armour does become available in the tech tree, and you will need to toggle between these depending on where you find yourself. What pal you are riding can also affect this. If you enter a hot area while riding a fire pal, then you will, of course, be subject to higher temperatures. Finding or buying undershirts to couple with these clothes can make you pretty much immune to environmental hazards, and a multi-climate undershirt exists within the game, making you immune to hot and cold climates. The easiest way to get undershirts is to buy them from the wandering merchant in Dune Shelter who is wearing green. Number 2. Essential early game pals. There are a few pals early game that will prove to be huge assets, excluding pals I've already mentioned in relation to farming, rideable mounts and fox parks. First, there's Cativa, who have work suitabilities in handiwork, mining, gathering and transport, giving them a number of functions to serve at your base. Cativa will automatically complete any pending production tasks, mine any mineral deposits inside the base, harvest any crops, and transport goods to storage. These traits are so valuable early on, and having them all comprised in a single pal is a big plus. Then there's Lifmunk, who is an excellent combat pal to have at your side, especially once their submachine gun partner skill is unlocked. Number 1. Pal Expeditions. My final tip is all about sending pals on expeditions. The PAL Expedition Station unlocks in the tech tree at tier 15. However, you can't begin sending pals until you defeat Zoe and Grisball at Syndicate Tower and unlock the first expedition location. Sending pals on expeditions is very similar to the Poké jobs in Pokemon Sword and Shield, where you can send Pokemon on jobs for a time to gain XP and bring back rewards. In Palworld, you can send pals out on expeditions to scavenge for resources, and it's an excellent way to passively stock up on spheres, ingredients, ores, ancient civilization parts, and more. Note that when pals are deployed, they will be out of action until they return. And that's all for this list, I'm afraid. Please let me know in the comments if you would like to see more content on Palworld, because I have loads more tips I can share with you to help you play smart and plan ahead. I've been Heather at Amalgamingle, and thank you very much for watching.